Welcome back, everybody, to Corvette Mods and Upgrades. This is episode 4, Fuel System and Exhaust. Most Corvettes generally have full exhaust that run from the front to the back, and you have the mufflers on each side of the rear quarter panel coming out the rear valance. I chose side pipes for my car. I'm using the factory muffler, but that's all I'm using. I ended up cutting the pipe off at the forward part of the muffler because for small block Corvettes and big block Corvettes, the factory side pipe exhaust is 2 1/4 inches in diameter. All they did was open up the flange larger for the big block manifolds, and then obviously is a smaller flange for the small block manifolds. So you can see the restriction there. But I like the look of the factory exhaust cover on the side pipes, so I went with the factory muffler. It's a reproduction muffler made by Allen's stainless steel, Allen's mufflers. It's actually aluminized. You can get them in stainless steel. I chose the aluminized steel. It's cheaper, and it'll last quite a long time. So these are obviously, if you know Corvettes, these are obviously not NOS or OEM side pipe covers. And those are 3-piece pot metal, and there's a lot of problems with that. First of all, it's 3-piece pot metal. They don't line up very well, and they have a tendency to not last. The chrome flakes off, they pit, and in addition to that, a genuine set or an NOS set is going to run you upwards of $1,200–1,500. These are made by ACI. They're sold through many vendors: Eckler's, Mid-America, Zip Corvettes, Paragon. You can get them separate or you can get them as a kit. I actually found these on Craigslist for $50. They were metallic red, and for some reason the previous owner had cut the front of the exhaust cover off. I don't know why. I ended up doing a little bit of fiberglass work. I smoothed it, I radiused it around. I like it actually better than the way that it comes factory if they were new. These do come with ceramic infused gel coat. So it's a little bit more to keep the heat down. If you can see here, you can see where the paint is being blistered along the bottom. So right here you can see where the paint's blistered from the heat of the side pipe. Now, some people may think that that's a problem, but for me, in actuality, as the car gets older and as this starts to blister and get worse, I can just take this off, knock it back down with some sandpaper. The gray that you see there is high heat engine paint, and I can just keep touching it up, touching it up, touching it up, and touching it up. I know it sounds tedious, but right now it hasn't come above the bottom fin right here, so I'm okay with that. You can't really see it until the car's up on a lift. I ended up using Thermotech heat wrap around the pipe. This is 3-inch pipe. I use the Thermotech heat wrap. This is on the also Thermotech black heat paint so that it kind of blends in a little better. I painted the muffler black as well. Even though these things get really, really hot, as I said, the paint's blistering on the bottom, I can run this thing all day long, and when I get out of the car, I can actually put bare skin against this and I won't burn my leg. One of the things about the side exhaust is you can see low ground clearance. This is 3.5 inches is the ground clearance is what I have. This is the lowest point of my car. It's lower than the frame, it's lower than the oil pan, it's lower than the steering components, it's even lower than the front air dam. So you gotta keep that in mind when you lower the car. I have a transverse front leaf springs from Vet Brakes and Products. They're adjustable through the spring rod bolts at the very end. You loosen the bolt to lower it, and you tighten the bolt to raise it. So I had to keep that in mind, and the front end is about as low as I dare go. Luckily, I had done some concrete work to my driveway, and I can actually pull in my driveway at about 60 miles an hour, and I don't have anything to worry about. But I do have to be careful out in town where I go, especially if there's speed bumps involved. I really don't want to tear this off. Okay, so here's what I did with my exhaust. I put catalytic converters on there, and I know a lot of you are going to think that's sacrilege. You know, oh my God, why do you do that? You're losing horsepower, or that's dumb, or your car is a 1969 car, it probably doesn't need to pass emissions. Well, there's several things at bay here. First of all, even though this is a modern LS engine, it's still going to smell like fuel coming out of that exhaust pipe right next to my window. And I can tell you from experience, over time, you're driving around when the weather's nice with the windows down with side exhaust, and you're going to smell like fuel by the time you get out. So these are not your average off-the-shelf catalytic converters. These are Magna Flow catalytic converters, but it eliminates the smell from the exhaust. Up here you can see where I have the O2 sensor. I have one on each side. It's required for the GMPP crate engines. Obviously you want it as close to the exhaust port as possible, and you need to have it at least between upright and horizontal. You don't want it angled down. So you're not going to get the right readings. What I did was I ordered the flanges from Summit. They're mild steel. I ordered 3-inch 180-degree bends from Summit. We TIG welded everything. I cut it. I tacked it with the MIG welder to where I wanted everything to be. I got this as close to the frame as I could. You'll notice that I got it away from just about everything on the driver's side of the car, and it comes out and makes a 90 degrees. So I have 3-inch pipe coming out of the exhaust, 3-inch catalytic converter inlet and outlet, and 3-inch pipe going into the factory exhaust. Okay, so we're at the back of the car, and I want to show you what I did with my fuel tank. This is not the original fuel tank, but it is a replacement OEM tank. I ended up drilling 2 holes in the bottom of the tank with a hole saw. The rear hole is 1 inch, and the front hole is 1.5 inches. And then I welded a sump here, and the purpose of that is I needed a baffle to keep the fuel from unloading on the pickup. And I mentioned in an earlier episode I had TPIS off an old Z28 Camaro on here, and this was the tank that I used for that. And it didn't run at the high pressure that these LSs do, but I still wanted to have some kind of sump system so the fuel wouldn't unload. So I have a line out into my MSD pump, and this is the nylon line off the SU R&R kit. I have a drain right here for my tank, and then over here I use the steel to steel coupler to put the fitting on here. I have my 5/16 line here going into the back of the regulator. So this is my return line. So the fuel comes out, goes into the regulator, goes to the front of the engine, and then the excess fuel comes back here and it goes in the factory line for the factory sending unit. Okay, so this is my new tank. I went through VB&P Hot Rods again, and they sourced this from Tanks Incorporated. You can see their name right there. So this is a complete kit with the tank. It comes with your fuel pump, comes with your sender, the straps. This is a check valve for your fumes. And it comes with everything you need to assemble it, as you see here, other than the fuel lines and these fittings and the filler neck that I bought. Comes with all the cork gaskets for everything. I purchased this separate. I wasn't going to take the one off my tank and reuse it, and this one's stainless steel. So when I ordered this kit, ran about $630, which, considering all you get, is not a bad deal. I didn't want to try and reinvent the wheel. I just wanted to get what was right and go ahead and get it in. The intake pump will run cooler. If I started going to a larger external pump, they run hotter, they require higher amperage, they require a thicker gauge wire. I wasn't ready to tear the car apart and start rewiring everything. So I made another mistake when I ordered this because they had two size fuel pumps, and of course I ordered the wrong one again. So I called them back, I told them my requirements, and instead of just getting the new pump and taking the original pump out and trying to pull it apart and put it back together, I just ordered the whole new system. This is what we got. This is just like the one that I have in the tank. This is the new pump, and they come with very, very complete instructions on how to set it up. And it's basically a bunch of measurements. The depth of the pump the depth of the tank minus the length of the pump gives you the number of inches that you need to cut off your pickup supply line to put your pump on, and then you take the depth of the pump minus an inch is how far you cut off your return line, and you put your clamps back on and you stick it right in the hole there, and we're back in business. The problem I was having is it was leaning out on the top end, and since I'm always in the top end, I didn't want to melt down. So this is the way we're going. Hopefully they have it in a couple days. When I wired my car, the majority of my external wiring under the hood and under the chassis, I use GM weather pack connectors. You'll notice that this is not the same tank. This is the tank replacement that I got. I got it from VB&P Hot Rods. They source out from Tanks Incorporated. I ordered the tank. It came with the intake fuel pump and the intake sending unit. Everything is specifically for this Corvette, and I ended up using a Walbro GPA 8, which is the 450 pump to support the fuel requirements in the LS3. But what I wanted to show you back here is the connections for the fuel sending unit and for the fuel pump. These are GM weather pack connectors. I bought a giant kit from Napa years ago. But inside the kit on the top of the lid are the part numbers for all the connectors, multiple connectors. This is a 2-wire. I have 1-wire, 3-wire, 5-wire, and I utilize GM weather pack connectors wherever I could throughout the entire car. So this is the check valve that came with the new tank from VB&P. It needs to be mounted as high as possible, especially above the filler neck for sure. So it's got a 2-way check valve, and if the pressure builds, it'll vent, and if fuel ends up sloshing, if it's enough force, it'll shut the vent ball so that it won't come out. But mine, I don't seem to be having any problems with mine, and it works perfect. That's going to do it for this episode. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Come see us next week for episode 5.